Imagine walking through Lisbon today. Wide boulevards, grand squares, golden sunlight on the Tagus River, a city of order and beauty. But beneath this modern face lies a story of unimaginable destruction. The 1755 earthquake that reshaped not just buildings, but an entire civilization. On All Saints' Day, everything changed forever. Join me as we journey back to the thriving city before the quake, through the chaos of that fateful morning, and into the brilliant rebirth that created the Lisbon we know today. Picture Lisbon in 1755, Europe's glittering jewel, capital of a vast empire stretching from Brazil's gold mines to Asia's spice ports. Ships crowded the Tagus harbor, unloading treasures that made the city one of the continent's richest. At the river's edge stood the magnificent Ribeira Palace, heart of royal power, facing the vast Terreiro do Passo Square, today's majestic Praça do Comércio. Around it sprawled a medieval wonder, narrow winding streets packed with merchants' houses, towering churches, and bustling markets alive with church bells, ship horns, and festival crowds. This was a city of faith. Over 90 churches and dozens of convents filled every neighborhood, their domes piercing the skyline. On holy days, processions wound through the maze-like alleys, candles flickering in every window, a beauty that would soon prove deadly. Yet for all its charm, Lisbon's dense old core sat vulnerable in a low valley between hills, built on shaky ground without thought of nature's fury. The stage was set for tragedy. Now we move to Saturday, 1 November 1755. It is All Saints' Day, one of the most important dates in the Catholic calendar. Because of the holiday, many businesses are closed. Large numbers of people have gone to morning mass. Inside the churches, the scene is calm and solemn. Candles burn in huge numbers on every altar, around images of saints, inside chapels, along the walls. Decorations made of wood, fabric, and flowers fill the interior spaces. Families stand or kneel close together in buildings that feel solid and eternal. The weather is reported as normal and there is no warning. People are praying, listening to the priest, or simply standing in silence. Then, without any sign, the earth begins to move. At around 9:40 in the morning, a massive earthquake strikes. Modern estimates put its magnitude between 8.5 and 9.0, originating far out in the Atlantic Ocean to the southwest of Portugal. For the people in Lisbon, there are no numbers, there is only shock and terror. At first, the ground trembles lightly. Some may look around confused, but quickly the movement becomes violent. Floors swing from side to side, walls begin to crack, lamps, chandeliers, and decorations start to fall. People lose their balance and are thrown to the ground. Inside the big stone churches, the danger is extreme. Heavy ceilings, domes, and arches were never designed to move. As the shaking continues for long seconds, then minutes, these structures start to fail. Massive pieces of masonry break loose and crash down directly onto the people below. Entire roofs collapse in a single moment, burying whole congregations under tons of debris. Out in the streets and in the crowded houses of Baixa, the effect is similar. Fissures open in the ground. Some accounts speak of cracks several meters wide. Buildings sway, lean, and then collapse, one after another, throwing up huge dust clouds that darken the air. The quake is not a quick event. Reports describe the shaking lasting several minutes, possibly in multiple strong waves. That extended duration is one reason the damage is so catastrophic. Any structure already weakened by the first movement has more time to fail during the following ones. When the earth finally becomes still again, a large part of Lisbon is already destroyed. Tens of thousands of people are dead or injured. Many more are trapped in ruins, calling for help. The city center that had been so full of life just minutes before is now full of screaming, dust, and confusion. But the disaster is not over. People who survived the first shock now have to make quick decisions. Many think the best option is to move to open spaces, away from tall buildings and collapsing walls. In a dense city with narrow streets, that often means heading towards the riverfront and the large open square of the Terreiro do Passo. So crowds begin to flow downhill towards the Tagus. When they reach the shore, they see something strange and frightening. The water is withdrawing, retreating away from the city. Ships that had been floating are now resting on the muddy bottom of the river. The riverbed, usually invisible, suddenly appears with rocks and exposed sandbanks. For people in the 18th century, this is a bizarre sight, and most do not understand what it means. Some even move closer to look, curious or confused. But what they are seeing is the classic sign of a tsunami, the water being pulled back before it returns in a powerful wave. After a short time, minutes, not hours, the water comes back with incredible force. A wall of water rushes up the Tagus, pushed by the energy of the earthquake out at sea. It hits the already damaged docks, the waterfront buildings, and the open square filled with survivors. The waves are several meters high at Lisbon. They smash into everything in their path, sweeping people, carts, barrels, broken wood, and stone fragments into a violent current. The low-lying districts near the river are flooded. Streets that were full of dust a short time before are now full of water and floating debris. Many who thought they had escaped the earthquake die in the tsunami. Those in higher areas watch helplessly as the water crashes through the city below. Lisbon, already heavily damaged, is now hit by this second deadly blow. Even this is still not the end. The earthquake and tsunami have wrecked buildings, broken chimneys, and thrown over countless candles and oil lamps. In kitchens, ovens and open fires have been disturbed. In churches, candles are still burning among fallen wood and fabrics. Small fires began to appear in different parts of the city. Under normal conditions, people could form human chains, bring water, and try to control the flames. But the streets are blocked with rubble. Many water sources are damaged, and many of the people who might fight the fires are dead, injured, or missing. The wind does the rest. Separate fires merge into larger ones. Roofs and wooden interiors catch easily. Over the next hours and days, the city experiences a firestorm, an enormous, intense fire that creates its own wind and feeds on the dense, closely packed buildings. For up to 5 days, flames burn through what is left of Lisbon's central districts. At night, the sky glows red. Survivors camp out in open areas or flee the city entirely. The smell of smoke, burned wood, and decomposing bodies fills the air. By the time the fires finally die down, the destruction is almost total in some areas. Between the initial quake, the tsunami, aftershocks, and the fires, estimates suggest that around 60,000 people may have died in Lisbon and the nearby region, though no one could count precisely. Whole neighborhoods are gone. Only fragments of the old city remain standing. From a distance, Lisbon now looks like a broken jaw of stone and ashes facing the river, a place that has been hit by almost every kind of natural force in just a few days. After the immediate shock, the Portuguese authorities have to respond. The king, Joseph I, is traumatized and reportedly refuses to live in solid buildings again, choosing to stay in large wooden tents. His powerful minister, Sebastião José de Carvalho and Melo, later the Marquis of Pombal, becomes the key figure in managing the crisis. The first priorities are practical. Deal with dead bodies to avoid disease, ensure there is food and water for survivors, and prevent looting and chaos. Soldiers are sent in to keep order and to help clear some of the streets. Large pits are dug for mass burials, or bodies are taken to be disposed of at sea. It is a grim but necessary step to stop epidemics. At the same time, the government orders surveys and reports to understand the scale of the damage. Officials are sent to different parts of the city and even to other regions of Portugal to describe what happened, how strong the shaking was, and what was destroyed. This early data collection is one of the first systematic attempts in Europe to study an earthquake scientifically. Soon, a bigger question appears: what to do with the devastated downtown area? The chief engineer, Manuel de Maia, and his team present different options. One is to repair what can be repaired and try to restore the medieval city. Another is to move some functions to other locations. The decision taken is bold. Instead of simply rebuilding the old chaotic street network, the destroyed Baixa will be redesigned from scratch. The ruins will be cleared and a new, rational city plan will be imposed on the old site. The Chilzen plan creates a grid of streets running roughly north-south and east-west. The new Baixa will connect Rosio Square in the north to a rebuilt riverfront square, today's Praça de Comércio. Streets will be wider and straighter, with better access to air, light, and movement. Squares will be placed at key points. The idea is not only to rebuild quickly, but to take advantage of the tragedy to improve the city. The reconstruction also introduces a new type of building, the so-called Pombalina building. It is not just an aesthetic style, it is also a technical answer to the earthquake. From the outside, these buildings look quite regular. They usually have 3 to 4 stories, similar window patterns, and aligned balconies and arcades. Their facades repeat along the streets, creating a uniform appearance. This repetition is intentional. It allows parts to be prefabricated and speeds up the work, and it also reflects Enlightenment ideas of order and reason. Inside the walls, however, lies the real innovation: the Pombalina cage. This is a wooden framework embedded in the masonry. Diagonal and horizontal beams form a kind of three-dimensional lattice. When the ground shakes, this structure can move slightly and distribute forces, reducing the chance of complete collapse. Thick walls between buildings rise above the roofs to slow the spread of fire from one house to another. The new design also considers better drainage, cleaner streets, and improved infrastructure. In many ways, the post-earthquake reconstruction of Lisbon is one of the earliest examples of a modern, planned, and somewhat engineered city in Europe. If you walk through Lisbon today, you can still read this history in the streets. In Baixa, between Rocio and Praça de Comércio, the grid you see on the map is the result of the post-1755 plan. The regular rows of buildings, the arcades on Rua Augusta, and the large open squares all come from the reconstruction effort. Praça de Comércio itself sits where the Ribeira Palace once stood, but now, instead of a royal residence blocking the view, the square opens directly onto the Tagus River. Statues, arcades, and government buildings frame a space that feels monumental yet open, very different from the crowded medieval city that was there before. If you leave Baixa and climb into Alfama or Moaria, the feeling changes. Streets become narrow, steep, and irregular again. Here, many of the old medieval structures and layouts survived the earthquake, either because the ground was more stable or the damage was less intense. This contrast between the straight lines of Baixa and the maze-like hills is one of the clearest visual reminders of the earthquake's impact. Lisbon Cathedral, with its heavy Romanesque towers and Gothic elements, also carries scars of the past but survived in part. The Aguas Libres aqueduct, outside the core destruction zone, still stands as another link to the pre-earthquake world. Together, these places show that Lisbon is a city built in layers: medieval, Pombalina, and modern,
all shaped by that one morning in 1755.